Welcome, one and all. Welcome to the Eye on Cricket. For those of us, for those of you who followed us before on the Cricket Analyst, this is the Cricket Analyst 2.0, and we encourage you to join us to keep an eye on the game we all love, and also the game we hate sometimes, like we did a couple of days ago after the Pakistan versus Sri Lanka game. I'm going to go on a bit of a monologue, just a slight monologue about the sorry state of affairs linked to Sri Lankan cricket. And Merle and Rook, I hope you guys don't mind me going on a bit of a rant here and a bit of a tangent. Sri Lanka cricket has had a reputation for being world bashers, tournament specialists since 1996, ever since our crown jewel moment in international cricket. But over the past 8, 9 years, we've apparently undergone this period of so called transition. I can't think of another team that has had an extended period of transition like the way we have. I can think of maybe West Indies. But I wanted to dive into the root causes of what has led to this prolonged period of transition. And I think for me, it's twofold. One, every other team in international cricket focuses on a World Cup cycle, be it a T20 World Cup cycle, be it an ODI World Cup cycle, or now be it a Test Championship cycle. We saw this in 2015 when England hit rock bottom, losing to Bangladesh at the Adelaide Oval in Australia, when Ian Morgan and the ECB decided we were going to revamp the way we played our ODI cricket, revamped everything, took out the old wood of the English team, brought in youngsters like Jason Roy, Johnny Bairstow, who were youngsters back then, gave them the freedom to express themselves and change the way they played ODI cricket. That was the foundation that led to England not only winning in 2019, but even coming to India this year as one of the favorites. You think about Team India in 2007, after they lost to Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, the likes of Dravid, Tendulkar, VVS Lakshman, Saurav Ganguly, Zahir Khan were all left out of the inaugural T20 World Cup a few months later. Because that was their moment of change. That was their moment of recognition that something had to change. And Indian cricket changed it when it did matter. But look at Team Sri Lanka. When the likes of Sangha, Mahela, etc. retired in 2014, or in 2015 rather, we brought in a crop of players, trusted them for 3 years, decided to dump a few of them on the eve of the 2019 World Cup, and took players like Jeevan Mendis, Jeffrey Van der Sey, and Dimut Karunaratne to the World Cup. Then, following which, we decided, look, we need to trust a group of youngsters again, gave them an extended run till 2023, and then a month before the qualifiers, we decide, no, we need to go back to our old crop, bring back Dimut Karunaratne into the setup, have an ad hoc LPL, not even in the same format, have two of our main bowlers and strike weapons injured before a World Cup. And here we are, arguably taking the youngest ever group of bowlers to a World Cup. This could be fit enough for a Sri Lankan under-23 World Cup squad. We will delve into this later on. I don't want to bore all of you, so I'll bring in Merle and Rook here. Merle, anything to say about the sorry state of affairs that is Sri Lankan cricket right now?
I mean, just like you said, like it feels like Sri Lanka will never transition out of this transition phase. It's been a while now, and I mean, I think you will remember at various points we've had this very encouraging phases of play, and almost even some tournaments, including like past T20 tournaments, where we seem to find a formula where that something would work. So we found. I think it was a T20 World Cup where Charit Asalanka and Banuga Rajapaksa really seemed to find like specific roles within the team where they could just explode, and they had clear roles to play, and they never really materialized. Wow, I mean, where I would perhaps hesitate in comparing ourselves to England and India are one like the clout and the financial might they have. That's one. But even if we compare ourselves to like New Zealand, who just like us, I mean, always overperform during like championships and tournaments like this. I mean, they come with low expectations and they exceed everybody's expectation at the end. And again, there is perhaps some competency, but I think there's something to be said about the players. And I don't know, this is not like an observation or something I can validate with facts, but I'm just wondering, once certain players come into the team and once they perform a few matches, and when once they build like semi-permanent stability in the team, they don't just care enough almost. Sometimes you get frustrated as fans just by looking at them. And some I've I've talked to you like offline on this as well. Like about 1.5 years ago, I thought like Charita Salanka would be like the next big thing in Sri Lanka. And I mean, in the way I phrased it back then was Charita Salanka has like the ceiling potential of a AB de Villiers. That's how good I felt he played like in certain innings. But I mean, yes, he has like, I mean, to this date he probably has, I think, Sri Lanka's highest average at this point, even above Sangakkara by like a couple of runs per innings. But I mean, that's not the Charita Salanka I thought I'd see. I mean, apart from that, I mean, we can also probably discuss some of the tactical elements of it, and how fair it is to compare like players who are playing out of position. Like, I mean, players like Matisha Pathirana, players like Dunith Vellalalage, just criticizing them and seeing them being criticized on social media for playing roles they are not qualified to play. It's not fair at all. And one final thing, again, just I'll just like highlight this here, and maybe we can take it up later. Uh, is do we have like to? I mean, the likes of Dimut Karunaratne and Prathum Nissanka, almost like, are they like, should they be part of our long-term setup? I know Prathum Nissanka has like out of all the players, he has probably like the good counting statistics on paper, but like anybody who comes like opening in limited overs cricket are going to have good counting statistics anyway. So if you compare DDS's counting statistic against Pratham Nissanka's, I think DDS is even slightly better. So that opening position, like the first three positions, are so crucial that like we really need to think about how we go about them. And I know like we'll talk about some of the selections we could have made. I mean, injuries definitely. I do think like even with all the frustrations, I mean, had Hasaranga been on the team and maybe a fit Chamira, I think some things could have like turned out maybe not incredibly differently, but we would have had close games. And I definitely think we would have restricted like South Africa to a 370, 380, like with them in the team. And then like if Hasaranga could have hit a few boundaries, who knows what would have happened.
Hindsight is such a great thing. A couple of days ago, midway through Pakistan's chase, the what ifs linked to Hasaranga and Chamira came roaring back. Rook, I'm going to bring you in here. And I'm going to pose a question, a pertinent question, by also showing our viewers the table we compiled yesterday. If you look at our bowling attack, right? We took our five primary bowlers, right, based on our first playing 11. We're going for a World Cup with our five leading bowlers having a combined total of 126 ODIs. Let's take Bangladesh out of the equation because Shakib's 240 games alone is a bit of an
Really skews
outlier.
it, no?
Exactly. But you look at India, Australia, England, New Zealand, 499, 476, 458, 358 respectively. And many pundits have these four teams as their semi-final picks. So there is some correlation there in terms of experience, in terms of trusting players and a system. If you're in the shoes of Matisha Patiran or Dunith Vellalalage, you've just come out of school cricket, just had one or two glorious years in the under-19 setup, and in Patirana's case, a couple of breakthrough seasons with CSK. Are you ready to take plunge? Or as Russell Arnold said, should they have just been protected and groomed till 2027?
So first of all, I think before I start whatever I'm going to comment on, I'm just going to say that I'm coming on a show after about 6 months. So thank you, Viren, for starting this initiative. And I have 6 months of frustration to rant out. So it's going to be an interesting show. But yeah, and I'm hoping we have Coach Aruna on as well at some point. Thanks for tuning in. So coming back to your question, I think both of you all gave a very in-depth, I would say, pertinent introduction to the state of Sri Lanka cricket. So I don't know what more there is to say. But if we're coming directly onto the topic of our bowling attack, I think, first of all, I personally do not agree with bringing Matisha Patiran. Well, having him in the squad, if you had a solid first starting 11-5 bowlers and having him in the squad as a backup, I would have been completely fine with having his, IPL experience, etc. But I've been discussing this as well with a couple of people offline, and I've always said that bowling 4 overs in a T20 game captained by MS Dhoni is not the same as coming into an ODI World Cup with a side of the caliber of Sri Lanka and having to perform day in, day out under pressure against teams that are ranked above you. It's not the same, right? Unfortunately, I think we've been forced into a situation where we have to pay Matisha Patirana. But we do have other options as well, right? We've got Lahiru Kumara, we've got, I think, Rajitha. There is the fast bowling attack. Unfortunately, Chamira's injury has really set us back in that front, because having him there would have been a massive asset. But throwing him into a World Cup, I don't think he's ready yet. Personally, that's my opinion. Like, I remember even I remember this interview with Lasith Malinga that I had watched some time ago, where he was questioned as to whether, I think he had been out for a period of long injury, and then somebody had questioned him because he'd not been included in the World Cup squad, whether, he would have liked to play. And the first thing he said was he's not ready, right? For him, especially with the way he bowls, his action and all, he just has to come and bowl like thousands and thousands of deliveries, and until he has that confidence that he can hit the stump 5 out of 10 times at least, or at his caliber 8 out of 10 times, he's not going to come and play in a team. Now, obviously this is a different situation with Patirana, but all I'm saying is I don't think he's come up to that level of discipline and control where he can be put into an ICC World Cup tournament at such little experience.
Very well said, Brooke. And I'm going to just go back to something I said on air on the cricket analyst.
Yeah. Sorry. One more thing, just to back up that point. I think if people look at the stats of him as to how many extras he gives away, it's literally unbelievable. I think 7 extras a game just by one bowler on average. I don't think that's acceptable in international cricket.
I tweeted this yesterday. So on average, I think since I don't know what the time period was, but like over a certain time period per match, he had conceded, I think, somewhere between 7.5 to 8 runs per game. Whereas the second highest on that list was Alsari Joseph from West Indies, who had conceded, I think, about 3.4 or 3.5. So almost twice the number of match wides per inning that he has conceded. So just like to this point, like the thing which made Malinga special is not just the slingy action. Yeah, over time he developed tremendous control and he put on muscle. And he had like a lot of options to go to where he could consistently bank on being able to deliver certain types of deliveries on top of his receptive action. So action is just one part of the equation, and just because someone can replicate that action, like entrusting him with like duties of like being the frontline ball on one of a pace attack is really not fair. I think like I said, just it's not that Sri Lanka had a lot of options. I think Kusals Rajitha, we almost thought he redeemed himself by that, almost that innings of his that he played against South Africa. But if he can be used properly, he seemed to, I don't know what he's banking on, but on patches, on certain stretches, he seemed to be able to control certain batting lineups to an extent. I know he would go on for runs later in the innings, but if you can use him properly, there are so many. Perhaps not so many ways, but there are ways to utilize him. I think whereas between Rajitha and Matisha on batting friendly pitches, I would probably lean Rajitha at this point. Going forward and using Matisha sparingly.
The other thing, I just want to pick up on what he said and pose a question to Viren. Merle mentioned if you can use him properly. So I think that comes to our second key focus on Sri Lanka cricket. And I'd like Viren's take on this. What do you think overall of captaincy decisions as well as team management and how they're utilizing the talent and availability that they have?
I like how Merle, Rook, and now Coach Arun are all on the same page on this about being player management and tackling and making the right decisions on the field. Let me break this down for all our viewers on two fronts. Firstly, there are two types of captains in my books. One is a captain who doesn't necessarily lead from the front in the department that they specialize in. So they aren't the team's best batsman, they aren't the team's best bowler, but they're known for their cricketing wit. I can think of the likes of Darren Sammy, who come to mind, someone who wasn't
Morgan.
West Indies, and Morgan for that matter, guys who weren't their team's best batsmen or best bowlers, but were instrumental in creating a certain culture within the team and a sense of consistency for that team over a prolonged period of time. You think back to the heights of the West Indies in T20 cricket, winning the T20 World Cup in 2012 in Sri Lanka. Let's not go back to that fateful night at our Premadasa when we all thought we were going to clinch it. Winning the World Cup again in 2016 in India. During those 4 years, West Indies was the most lethal team in T20 cricket, thanks to Darren Sammy's leadership. Morgan single-handedly changed the culture of English white ball cricket. And I can't wait to see him as a brilliant coach. I think he's going to be the next big thing in the coaching front in international cricket. But then let's talk about the one and only Dasun Shanaka. And I'm going to open this up with a disclaimer, right? And this is the same thing I said on the Cricket Analyst as well. We care about Sri Lankan cricket, but we don't hold back in terms of our opinions because there's nothing that we are accountable for. Or we're not tied down to any organization, tied down to any stakeholders who require us to say a few things. This is an open platform for us to just openly engage on issues. Dasun Shanaka, for me, has proven in the past to have the potential of being our most lethal finisher. We saw that in India in January this year, where he single-handedly nearly took the game away from India in a couple of T20s. We saw him do that at Pallekele last year. All of us are looking ahead to Sri Lanka versus Australia in a couple of days. And we remember what Dasun Shanaka did to Josh Hazlewood in Pallekele maybe 12/13 months ago. But I'm going to pose a question to everyone. When was the last time Dasun Shanaka made a match-winning impact in an ODI? I'm leaving aside T20 cricket where he's shown his prowess time in, time out. But in ODI cricket, I can't recall the last time he's won us a game single-handedly and had a match-winning impact. And this is what's slightly concerning about our squad selection. You take all 15 of our players. Dushan Hemantha has never won us an ODI. Dimut Karunaratne has never won us an ODI. Matisha Patirana has never won us an ODI. Players like Sadira Samarvikrama, etc., have now proven themselves, but I can't remember the last time the likes of Pathum won us an ODI. And that is our issue. You take every other squad, even the Dutch squad, with no disrespect to the Netherlands. Bas the leader single-handedly knocked out the West Indies in the qualifiers. It's those impact players that we need. So I don't blame Dasun for the selection, for the haphazard selections. But then when you have the players, you play them right. And this is where Coach Aruna's question comes in. You know Matisha Patirana is just 19/20. This is his first World Cup. He's playing a game in Hyderabad in front of 55 to 60,000 fans, plus millions watching live. He's clearly not found his rhythm in his first few overs. And it's time for you as a captain to stand up and bowl a few overs. You go into the team as an all-rounder. If you bet yourself at number 7, I'd expect you to be an all-rounder and not think of yourself as just a batsman if you're batting at number 7. You don't just bowl a couple of overs and shy away from things. And that is my issue with Dasun Shanaka. There have been countless occasions in the past where he shied away from responsibility, even for the sake of protecting his own kin. And that is my issue with our captaincy as a whole. I will think of cricketers and captains who were rather selfless. In Sri Lanka alone, think back to 2014, ahead of the World T20 final. Dinesh Chandimal took Sri Lanka to a World T20 final. And I'd like to believe the reports in saying that he actually stood down and said, "Look, I need to step down and not play the final." I don't know if there was external influence behind the scenes. But if you can be accountable for your own actions as a player, that is when you stand up as a captain. And looking at all 10 captains in this World Cup, I mean, we'll speak about Rohit Sharma later on. We'll speak about the likes of Kane Williamson. We'll speak about the likes of um, we'll speak about the likes of Joss Butler. But for me, there are two captains who don't deserve their spot in each of the 11s. And that is Temba Bavuma for me, but we'll talk about the South Africa racial quotas later. And then Dasun Shanaka. So yes, sorry about that. I had to kind of go on a bit of a tangent there, but feel free to come in.
So actually, I want to add one point to this, and this is not specifically related to Dasun. I completely agree with you. I don't think he is a fabulous captain. I mean, that's a fact at this point. It's not an opinion. But I would also like to draw some attention towards Sri Lanka cricket as a whole and Sri Lanka cricket's objectives, right? It's not a surprise that there was an ODI World Cup coming up. It's not been a surprise that there is such a high profile, now with the whole the importance of a World Cup, right? But obviously, this was not. They have some issue in strategizing long term and planning for tournaments like this, or they just didn't consider it as a key focal point, right? I think with the situation in Sri Lanka last year, God just created a miracle by having us win that Asia Cup. But other than that, sheer brilliance of one tournament, I didn't see any, strategic planning towards a marquee event by Sri Lanka cricket overall, whether it be the board, the captain, the coaching staff. And I think that is where the inherent problem with Sri Lanka cricket lies, right? We've got talent, but it's taking that talent to the global stage that has been the issue. And that is why, coming back to Viren's first point that he made, we're just in a never-ending transition period, right? It's not that there isn't talent, there is the school cricketing system and all of that. I agree there needs to be reforms, but there is a basis to work on, right? But they're not using that basis to be able to. And I feel like instead of going forward, we're taking 10 steps back, right? Because now Afghanistan and Bangladesh, who once upon a time 5 years ago were not even in the league of Sri Lanka, are qualifying automatically for a World Cup. And then we're going to the qualifiers having to play with associate nations. And and also it's great to see that associate nations are becoming a lot better, that competition itself is becoming a lot more competitive, but just looking at Sri Lanka cricket, we're just taking steps back. I don't understand.
I mean, just to come in on two things there, I think like Sri Lanka cricket's job is not going to get any easier with like all kinds of league cropping up, even when there weren't. Yeah, sorry, I think there was a small connection issue. Yes, y'all can hear me, yes? Yeah, so I wanted to come in on two things. The first is I don't think Sri Lanka cricket's job is going to get any easier with like all kinds of league cropping up all over the world. So even when there weren't as many leagues, we didn't do as good a job in like organizing a proper tournament, making sure like proper systems and procedures were in place. But now I think things are just exploding. I think some of it is not within the controls of cricket boards, not yet, like let alone Sri Lanka cricket board. So like players optimizing for their own objectives and their earning potential is going to be a part of cricket going forward. So it's inevitable. So like it takes shrewd management and strategizing to navigate that. That's one thing. And second thing, just to come back on Dasun's captaincy. So I completely agree with you. Like he seems to have like lost the plot and lost the dressing room, and the sheer lack of responsibility exhibited during the final few overs was glaring. But I also wanted to just like highlight like the few tricks that he missed as well. So I was texting on like work group even the match was going on around like I think the 27th to 28th over. I was just asking like why haven't we bowled like more of Madhushankar and Theekshan at this point? Because like the Dasun's thing seems to be, especially when he doesn't have the fifth bowler, just to get through your fifth bowler part timers as much as possible during those middle overs without taking into any account the match context. So we had 340 plus on the board, and we had two for 47 by the end of 10 overs. I mean, if you let Pakistan batsmen settle, if they find form, they are going to attack, but they are not going to attack from the get-go. And you have the likes of Iftika Ahmed who can whack a ball at the end, especially if there are wickets in hand. So without strangling them, without putting pressure on like the Pakistan batsmen and trying to get like more wickets like at like between 10 to the 30th over, so we were left with 12 overs of Madhushankar and Teekshan in the final 19 overs, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that was like a the major trick that we missed, like, and we could have like used them like far more effectively. And I think this was highlighted in other podcasts that I listened to as well. Just like how you miss that as a captain in an international team, I'm quite not sure.
And I want to let's wrap up this chat on Sri Lanka cricket and move on to another team. But I want to take this question from the sports breakdown, um, and I agree with the premise of this question. Right, we are having a fast bowling injury crisis. Should we have resorted to the experience of someone like an Asita Fernando or even a Vishwa Fernando, for that matter, someone who has been in the circ setup for 3-4 years at least, someone who has thrived playing in other countries, in Asita's case, thrived in playing in the county championship? Could we have had some fast bowling reserves, except without just resorting to having Lahiru Kumar and Kasun Rajata, who are also both very injury prone? And this is where I want to wrap up this convo on Sri Lankan cricket by highlighting the lack of squad depth going into a World Cup, right? We only have one batsman on the bench, and that is unfortunately a batsman who can only play as an opener. I know we tried having Dimuth batting at number 7 in a warm-up game, but that was a one-off mystery, something that I hope we never kind of go back to at any point. But you have players like Avishka Fernando, who have been match winners on the day. Prior to Kusal Mendis and Sadira Samaravikrama scoring centuries a couple of days ago, it was Avishka Fernando and Angelo Matthews who were our only two centurions in 2019. Now, this is not propaganda, or this is not my mission to say that Angelo Matthews should be a part of this World Cup squad. But this is me saying players like Avishka Fernando, who have World Cup experience. Some of us will remember his lovely pull shot of Jofra Archer to the second tier of the Oval in 2019, where he made a name for himself in that cameo that he played against England. When you have World Cup pedigree, there's nothing quite like World Cup experience and big match experience. And this is where I move the conversation on from Sri Lanka and talk about the other end of the spectrum. But before we do, and Merle has given me a gentle reminder here, and this was on our banner as well, a tale of two Kusals. Charles Dickens would have termed this the tale of two Kusals. Kusal Mendis, I remember this show that Stefan Zora and a few of us had during Durham Gate when we took the Mickey out of Danushka, Kusal Mendis, and Niroshan Dikwaller. Out of the trio,
our channel's claim to fame, I must say.
Exactly. One person out of the trio decided that was going to be his wake-up call and decided to come back with vengeance and with a plan. And I have no hesitation in saying this. The one reason I will watch the Australia versus Sri Lanka game day after is to watch Kusal Mendis taking on this Australian fast bowling attack. Because this is a reformed Kusal Mendis, a Kusal Mendis who is 5 or 6 years too late in terms of where he should have been. We all remember his debut series against Australia, where he scored a double century in that first test match that set the series up for us in that whitewash, right? But here he is again, and this is the best I've seen him back. Merle, I'm going to come to you, and then Rook, you can take it on from there. Is this the best version of Kusal Mendes?
I mean,
What is the England you want to see going forward?
this is definitely the best version of Kusal Mendes I've seen, and there was an interesting analysis that Jared Kimber had done the other day as well. So he had analyzed like various lengths and lines of Kusal Mendes and strike rates before and after like this recent resurgence, and across the board, across all lines and lengths, he's striking at over 150. So it's not just like short deliveries. It's not just a pickup shot. It's not that like short ball that he cuts. So his general demeanor is like of one aggressive, a crazy person. And I think he's best unleashed this way, even though like you might feel like the number three requires some element of responsibility. I don't think you should bog down Kusal Mendes at this point with like trying to infuse responsibility or trying to like to put that into his head. I think he should be like let loose. But my more interesting question, or rather, what I'm thinking is like, will he be able to sustain this? Because he's scoring at such a high level, and of course, he's been batting at like two very batting friendly pitches. And I don't remember whether the Afghanistan match, like how that pitch was, I don't recall. But going forward, like we would love to see this, but will he be able to I mean, if he continues at least like an 80% version of this, I think like he'll be set, and he would continue to serve Sri Lanka and realize the potential that like everybody saw him in, I think about 6-7 years ago.
I mean, I agree. He's
Well
having a
said,
purple
well
patch.
said, Mal. And Rook, I'm going to bring you in here.
Yeah. So I mean, I completely agree. He's having a purple patch.
Sorry,
We're
go
all
ahead.
enjoying it, and I think we should enjoy it while it lasts, and not just let's not comment too much about it, because it's what's keeping me watching Sri Lanka's games. So I think from now, I think let's move on to some other teams. I know there are a lot of questions about Sri Lanka cricket, DDS and Lahiru Dushan. And we can go on and on and on forever. But in the interest of sticking to a reasonable show length, let's just make a few comments about the other teams and their match winners. So I think it's only fair that we include the hosts and probably favorites for the tournament, India. I don't know. A lot of pundits have them as their favorites, but a lot of people think otherwise. And I'll throw this out to Viren. Viren, who do you think India's match winner is?
Thanks, Rook. I mean, speaking about captains leading from the front, yesterday was the textbook definition of a captain leading from the front, right? Took the game on. And mind you, when Afghanistan posted 275, I saw a lot of engagement about how against Afghanistan's pin bowling trio, that this was going to be a tough chase. And Rohit Sharma laid those concerns straight away at the onset. And that is what you call a match-winning knock. Took the pressure off Ishan Kishan, took the pressure off Virat Kohli, KL Rahul, and the rest of the middle order. And that was a captain leading from the front. And I'm going to quickly tie it back to Vinura's question. I know Rook will not be too happy with me bringing back Team Sri Lanka here. But the reason I brought this question in is because I want Sri Lankan cricket fans to know that, yes, we've had 2 bad games, but our World Cup is not over. And if I were to make a few changes, this would entail me having DDS opening the batting, right? Because KJP for me is either a hit or miss at this point, and he's not 100% match fit. So you might as well play someone who is 100% match fit opening the batting, and that for me is DDS. I will rest Matisha Patirana because with the trajectory he's going at now, it's career threatening in my books if he keeps playing. And at such a young age with burnout, with risks of mental health issues linked to like the social media outbursts about his performance, I will protect him and play Lahiru Kumara, more experienced Lahiru Kumara. And there was talk, and Merle, I'll bring you in on this. You were saying something along the lines of a few pundits wanting Dushan to come in at the expense of DDS. Would you like to give us your take on that?
I mean, so I think this was Nicholas Brooks suggesting in the Murali podcast. So I think his line of argument is at this point, DDS is not going to be a positive contribution in the middle over in the bat. So you might as well strengthen the bowling lineup, especially when you are going to like Lucknow, where I mean historically the pitch has the newly laid pitch seemed to be not a high scoring pitch, even though South Africa scored 300 and 11 today, but still it's one of the low scoring games comparatively. So would you rather? I mean, I completely agree with you. If DDS is to remain in Sri Lanka's limited over setup, he has to open. I don't know how you sort out the top, and we didn't even like discuss in length our opinions about Nuanindu, Avishka, and Cruz Pulle, and how we may want to experiment going forward. But like leaving that aside, I mean, yes, and I'm just wondering after again we keep coming back to Sri Lanka. I was also wondering like if we don't do as well in the Australian match, then should we also maybe keep an eye out into the future and do some experiment within the tournament itself and not 100% optimized to get into the qualifying? Like if you have a reasonable we will leave this an open question rather than perhaps answering and going back to Sri Lanka. But like I'm completely down for experimenting with Dushan Hemanta in place of DDS if certain conditions are met.
Well said, Merle. And before Rook gives me the death stare anymore, Rook, I'm going to come back to you, and we'll go back to India for a minute. Who has been your match winner, and someone that you've kept a close eye on?
So anyone who knows me would know that my first choice is going to be Virat Kohli, and he's been in pretty good form. He scored a century, a half century yesterday. Uh, I think he was the one who pulled them out of fix in the match against Australia as well. But I'm gonna go with a not a very popular opinion here, but he wasn't even included in the original
Sorry,
squad for India.
have we lost Rook temporarily?
And no, I can hear Rook. I think she's there.
I think Viren, you're lagging a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just going to go on. So he wasn't even in the original squad. And I was extremely disappointed when I found out that he was not in the squad, and then extremely relieved to find out that they finally added him into the squad. And I'm talking about Ashwin. I know Ashwin has not been their leading bowler for India, but I'm just talking about game changers, right? And for me, Ravichandran Ashwin is a person who can come with the ball, with just his strategic thinking, the way he executes, and the way he comes in with so much research and plan A, plan B, plan C, up to X number of plans. He goes into the matchups, and even if you watch him talk on interviews and podcasts and all, you'll understand how the man thinks, and which is why I have extreme respect for him as a cricketer, as a cricketing mind. And for me, I think, yeah, Ashwin, he should play all of India's games. I'm a fan of Jadeja, I'm a fan of Kuldeep, but I also think Ashwin is an extreme asset for India in tough situations. He can, play his part with the bat as well. So yeah, I'm going with Ashwin.
I mean, I'll probably not pick a match winner, but the player I'm most excited to see in the Indian team hasn't even played a single match yet. That's Shubman Gill. For the longest time, Shubman Gill has been like a fascination of mine. So he reminds me a lot of Yuvraj Singh, but he seems to be a
Well
stronger
said.
version of you.
And Merle, I'm going to bring you in here. First, am I audible, guys? Yeah.
I think you were lagging a little bit, and that's fine. Yeah, so I was just like starting to just rave about Shubman Gill and my fascination about Shubman Gill, and I'm so excited to see him and what he can do in the tournament, especially in home conditions where he's like likely to thrive and have like the best possible set of circumstances. And I mean, I think he will be like one of like 3 to 4 the brightest prospects that we have in the global game. And like I mean, I had him earmarked for the leading run scorer before the tournament. I don't think he's going to be any longer, having missed 2 matches. But how Shubman Gill can come in and how he can respond to various types of he being tested and him responding and watching him in respond to various types of attacks and players even thinking through and strategizing against him would be like fascinating for me to see. And the one other play, I'm just going to just put it out there, and I'm so fascinated by like in this edition of the World Cup is Aiden Markram. I mean, the fellow is like almost to a T technical. He plays proper cricket shots, but he also has like tremendous upper body strength where he can just check shots and they go to fours and sixes. So he picks the gaps. I mean, there was some analysis that like he's not the best in rotating the strike, but the way the man is hitting, I don't think you need to rotate strike that much. He just like he has tremendous power. He picks his spots. He can play the spin relatively well. He can pick up the slow ball. He can pick up the short ball. I mean, just fascinating, and how South Africa is going to navigate with like a top heavy almost. I mean, Viren might have thoughts about Temba Bauma, but other than that, that batting lineup is on fire and in form, and this will be like great to see. Even today will be, I think, a pivotal moment in their trajectory, especially for South Africa. But that's one team I'm really excited to see, and I'm probably one of my dark horses even for making the finals. Even though, given that history, I wouldn't rely on it. But South Africa, I'm just fascinated by.
Yeah, I know. I completely agree, Merle. And even looking at, I just switched on to see the scorecard at the moment as well. And like you mentioned, at a traditionally not very high scoring stadium like Lucknow, they've put on a pretty commendable score. And this has been a quite a fabulous opening spell by Ngidi and Marco Jansen as well. Especially in Giddy, he's taken a wicket. I think South Africa are now, Australia are now 3 wickets down. So definitely the favorites to win the game, and going in, I think they are quite favorites to make the semi-finals and even go the distance this time. If at all, I think they need a little bit more firepower from their openers, but I think the middle order more than compensates for that. The first game, Markram won the game for them, and I think he's continuing to do that. I'm not sure if Viren has dropped off, but I think let's just talk a bit about the other teams. And since we talked about India, let's now move on to their better half. Merle, what do you think about Pakistan?
Pakistan also seems to be in this like weird almost identity crisis where their bowling is not firing as well as they would have liked, but like their batters seem to be like just like saving their face. And Naseem Shah, the absence of Naseem Shah is being like really felt, but like Shadab Khan not being able to figure out, I think he's having like confidence issues and he's not being able to just pitch the ball where he wants to, and he's being attacked, and I think the conditions aren't helping him as well. Pakistan I think, will be Pakistan going forward. They will continue to keep us in suspense and will pull off a miracle or just disappointed that completely like towards the end of the tournament. But I mean, they won 2 matches out of 2, so this is as good as it gets for them in terms of results. Rizwan, I mean, the theatrics were fascinating to see, and also. I'm just going to put this to Viren. Like, what do you think is going on with Shaheen Afridi? Is Do you think he'll come back? I think he'll make a comeback and just rip off few wickets of Indians like in the first couple of overs. But there are certain bowlers. Again, whether it's conditions or whether it's something else. Rashid Khan, Shaheen Shah Afridi. I would have like really. I mean, like just have them earmarked to have amazing World Cups, but they are not living up to their reputation.
Good question, Well. And just like I've said here, sorry state of affairs. My Wi-Fi connection has been a sorry state of affairs over the past few minutes. I apologize on that front. To answer your question, I think Shaheen Shah Afridi is nursing a niggle, if I'm not mistaken. He doesn't seem to be 100% match fit. We saw him grimacing every time he kind of put in an extra ounce of effort against Sri Lanka. So for his sake, I hope he remains injury free, because we've been speaking about our pace bowling department having an injury crisis. But if Pakistan loses the services of both Naseem and Shaheen Shah Afridi, that's their World Cup hopes in the mud, in my opinion. And this is why I on a certain show that I had with a few Indian cricketing fans, prior to the World Cup, I said that Haris Rauf was going to be the trump card for Pakistan. That extra yard of pace that he brings in is something that's going to threaten batsmen in these pitches. But I can't write Shaheen Shah Afridi off, like you said. There's nothing stopping him from silencing 132,000 Indian fans in Ahmedabad this Saturday. And he's up against Rohit Sharma, KL Rahul, Virat Kohli, who all seem to have an Achilles heel when facing Shaheen Shah Afridi. And he's a great bowler, someone who has, in spite of his injury concerns, been managed really well by Pakistan in terms of managing his workload coming in to the World Cup. So yes, I expect him to put on a good display. I need to bring you in here, Merle, to answer this question about the wickets we've seen in India during the course of this competition. It hasn't been ideal for bowlers. And my question to you, and this is why I want to bring this question, because we wanted to have a discussion on the format, on the relevance of ODI cricket. And I think Coach Aruna has taken us to the climax of this discussion, rather. I, for one, love ODIs. For me, this is the pinnacle of the sport. We've all grown up looking forward to World Cup cycles, right? And I don't think it should be threatened in any way, shape, or form. But the skeptics feel like this is a bridge too far. We're trying to bridge the gap between tests and T20s with the ODI format, but it's not hitting its intended target. My question to you is, could this end up being the last, if not one of the last 50 over World Cups we see?
Everything I've been hearing and seeing and the podcast that I've been like following seems to suggest that there will at least be another World Cup, almost like a 75% chance of another World Cup. But the more interesting question is like, how are we? I mean, are we going to tweak some elements about ODIs going forward? Even when it comes to like pitches and the amount of scores that you are seeing and the balance between the bat and ball. I don't think even if you have like bowler friendly pitches, given the evolution of the T20 game and the hitting capabilities of the modern batsman, you are going to see like 260s, 270s often, especially even in comparable pitches. The game is going to be high scoring and the players are going to come with skills which like lend itself to that. But are there like I don't want to like get finicky and suggest like weird rule changes where like having so many fielders in the boundary, which might like bore the game, bore the living hell out of like some of the traditional cricket fans like us. But I mean, having an honest discussion about like how to structure ODI within the context of like the other two formats and what appears to be like cricket boards and general cricket administration losing control of where the game is heading to an extent. Like that's definitely a larger conversation, but I think for most South Asians, especially Sri Lankans who grew up with ODI cricket, I don't think we can easily let go of that. But something, I mean, one thing I had almost like as a potential solution is to like figure out a way to have like multilateral like tournaments, but that too seem to be not doing so well financially, especially when two neutral teams are playing. That doesn't seem to be so viable either. So yeah, like we are in, I think, like precarious ground when it comes to ODIs, but it will be interesting to see. I mean, if the one thing we still have going on for ODIs is like when it comes to the World Cup, nothing feels like an ODI World Cup. I don't think this is just South Asians. Like T20 World Cups, there are so many leagues happening at the same time. Like T20 World Cups happening every year. I don't think like it has that significance or like the special feel about a World Cup happening in the world when it comes to T20 World Cup. So there's still a special place for the ODI World Cup. But other than that, like how do you figure out that format? Sustaining this format, I think, is going to be really tricky. And I also like heard some figures that like to this day on a per game basis, ODI World Cup is just still like clearly ahead of a T20 World Cup when it comes to revenue as well. But like I think it's not just like per game revenue that at the end of the day which matters. It's like the aggregate revenue across the tournament and across the format. Like when it comes to like the revenue of cricket board. So I'm not optimistic about the game and its sustenance, but I think, I mean, we should perhaps take it with the spirit of like, let's enjoy it while it lasts, just like we enjoy Kusal Swarm while it lasts, without knowing what will have come out of it.
Couldn't have said it any better, Merle. And I'm going to bring Rook in here because I think we've had an extensive focus on Asia and the Asian teams at the World Cup. But I want to move over to Oceania, and look at two teams, New Zealand and Australia. I mean, we don't have much data to work with Australia, who are midway through their second game. But let's talk about New Zealand. We're talking about youngsters. Let's talk about a certain Rachin Ravindra, shall we? What a knock that was against England and the almighty English attack. A few words on Rachin Ravindra, Devon Conway, and the New Zealanders, Rook.
Yeah, I think there was an extremely strong statement from Rachin, and there was a lot of debate around, once Kane is fit, who do they drop? I think Rachin has kind of cleared up that debate because he's proven himself more with the bat, but also that he can contribute with his little few overs here and there with the ball. And I would say he looks very comfortable in these conditions. He's confident. I mean, after all, he's in his early 20s. So, and obviously he and Devon Conway, their sync, the way they bat, the way they rotate the strike and complement each other really works well. So I think New Zealand have found a match-winning combination at the top there. If I were the New Zealand team management or the captain, I wouldn't meddle with that. I'd just let it flow the way it's going. Kane Williamson, I know he's got a wealth of experience and I would definitely bring him back into the side if he is fit. But then they'll have to explore other options of who they drop. Maybe bring in, give a little few more overs to their all-rounders and drop a frontline bowler, something like that. But I think having seen the past couple of games, I don't want to make a judgment call too fast. But I think the two dark horses of every World Cup coming in this year are seeming to pull off a few extra winning efforts there. And I'm talking about both New Zealand and South Africa. It seems like South Africa is on road to winning today as well, which puts Australia in a bit of a tricky position because they've already lost to India. Now they're losing to South Africa. Overall, I think you can hear the excitement in my voice. All the teams are stepping up. This is proving to be a very interesting World Cup, and I'm excited to see overall how it pans out.
Prior to the World Cup, if someone told me that Sri Lanka and Australia would be level on points after two games, I would have taken it. Didn't expect Australia to be losing their first two. I want to mention New Zealand here because I think this is a good cyclical structure to the show. We started off with Sri Lanka's selection debacles. I want to talk about New Zealand for a while because by far they are the most underrated team over the past decade and a half. Merle, if you recall the 2007 World Cup semi-final against Sri Lanka, it was Mahela who knocked them out in that semi-final. In 2011, again, they faced us in the semi-final, got knocked out. Reached the final in 2015, put on a very good display against Australia. 2019, I'm not going to say they lost the final. It was a tie. I'm not going to go down into the conditions of it all and break down the nitty-gritties of the technicalities that define their loss. But in 4 consecutive 50-over World Cups, they've been semi-finalists. A country that doesn't have too many cricketing resources, a country that doesn't even focus extensively on cricket. And this is happening at the same time as the Rugby World Cup. And I'm sure the All Blacks garner a lot more attention and focus back home. My question to you, Merle, is how far can this New Zealand team go this year? And do you think they have what it takes to go one step further in the 2023 World Cup?
I think, I mean, I definitely hesitate to like write them off making the finals. I think I wouldn't call them having finals potential because I don't think the medium outcome of them like playing all these teams would be them getting into the final. But if we learned anything from the past World Cups, I wouldn't write them off, especially with them finding Rachin Ravindra. And one needs to wait and see what Kane Williamson can perform. Just continues to exceed our expectations, and they seem to have found, just like we did, not that they were consistently world beaters like coming into tournaments, but they have that like tournament X factor, something that they seem to have figured out how to win tournaments and how to like utilize their limited resources and be smart about their cricket. and just like be fearless about the game. I just love like watching Glenn Phillips and Devon Conway just just amazing stroke play and just like playing a brand of cricket. Even if they lose, it's just fun to watch. And I mean, again, I haven't like, looked at them in depth to like give informed and like erudite opinions about like their tactics and strategy and how they've developed their system. But just like an eternally fun team to watch, an inspiring story always. And just like I think Sri Lanka can do well to learn from them, even though like we seem to be the ones who were continuously exceeding expectations, especially in the T20 format for the longest time. But uh, I mean, a feel good story. I would have them like outside the. Uh, I would give them an outside chance of even making it to the final. I mean, I would. I can see them making the semi-finals, but like if you really, really press me, uh, they might just fall off the final four because I definitely have South Africa ahead of them at this point. So that's probably what's keeping me New Zealand out.
Perfect. And every time I start a new series, I fall into the trap of having the first show going over an hour. So I'm trying to keep to that timing. Rook, Merle, a final question to you both to wrap this up. Uh, Also on the premise that we will be back quite regularly over the next few weeks. So we will answer all questions linked to the World Cup during our next few shows. Over the next week, Rook, what are the games you're looking forward to? Which teams are you looking forward to watching and following? Except Sri Lanka, of course. We're all looking forward to seeing us perform very well once again against Australia. But keeping the sarcasm aside, which teams, which games are you eagerly anticipating over the next week?
I mean, nobody can ignore the blockbuster that Saturday is going to bring. It feels like the entire
Sorry,
World Cup
sorry.
has been.
What's happening on Saturday?
Viren chooses to purposely ignore this other Asian rivalry, but because it's you can't ignore it, right? India Pakistan is now bigger than any cricketing rivalry or any sporting rivalry, perhaps, that has ever happened in this era. But I'm extremely excited. I know someone who was lucky enough to get a ticket, so hopefully I might get a few snippets from the stadium as well. But canceling all my plans Saturday afternoon, I'm going to be glued to the TV set. And that's really exciting to see. I hope that it's a close. See, I'm not going either way. I really don't. As a cricketing fan, a neutral fan of both India and Pakistan, I just want a close game, an exciting game, both teams fighting it out till the end, and maybe just another Virat Kohli special to seal it off. But other than that, I'm really excited to follow the New Zealand and South African teams. I hope just because I like when a team that has not been contended to go the distance come out as favorites and go win the cup. So if unfortunately, I don't know how much of a stance Sri Lanka has, and in the absence of being able to support your home country, I'd like to see New Zealand or South Africa pull this one off.
They always tend to be everyone's second favorite teams. Merle, over to you.
I have a quite odd pick. It's not probably a popular pick. I just want to say what's going to come out of this Afghanistan batting lineup. So they seem to have figured something out. Their batting line is, if not consistently firing, they're doing fairly well. And you, I think, have England coming up with them. Not the strongest bowling attack on paper. So we know like Reece Topley performed quite well. But are they going to be able to hold up? Are they finally making that like transition into a fully fledged like one day international team? Like we know, like they've had their bowling lineups like consistently over the past so many years now, but their batting lineup seems to have figured something out. The test of England will be like really fascinating for me from a cricketing point of view.
Well said. Jay Shah and the BCCI will look forward to Saturday. Team Sri Lanka ruined their plans of having an India-Pakistan Asia Cup final yet again. But fortunately, they have an Indo-Pak game 3 weeks later. We look forward to the game on Saturday. It's going to be an epic encounter in Ahmedabad in front of what will be a world record attendance of over 132,000 fans. I'm intrigued to see what the ambience at the ground looks like. I'm also intrigued, as Mer said, to follow the Afghanistani batting lineup because Afghanistan has been known to be a bowling heavy attack, a bowling heavy team. They haven't been known for having a consistent batsman. But now something seems to be coming together under Jonathan Trott's watch. So it'll be interesting to see how they fare. And personally, for me, there's one team that I'm eager to follow for the course of this World Cup, and that is South Africa for me. A team that has continuously been tagged as chokers. We are looking back to 1999 and Lance Klusener and Alan Donnell's mishap, going forward to 2003 in a home World Cup with Mark Boucher making a few DLS calculation blunders. Move forward to 2015 when the whole world thought that South Africa was going to cruise over the line. Rains affected the game in Wellington, and Grant Elliott appeared out of nowhere. Uh, a left field pick by New Zealand appeared out of nowhere and ended South Africa's run. This could finally be the year where everything comes together for them, and it'll be interesting to see how they fare. This has gone over the year mark. You would have noticed that I didn't make too many introductions at the start of the show. That's purely because Merle and Rook, two of my closest friends, will always be around on the Eye on Cricket. Merle, Rook, thanks for joining us for the inaugural show. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Yes, there were technical glitches. Yes, there were technical blunders. This was just our first show, and this was equivalent to Sri Lanka starting off a World Cup campaign. It hasn't been the best start. It hasn't been the most opportune start, but it can only go up from here. And as fellow Sri Lankan cricket fans, we wish our team every success against Australia, and we hope we don't make Glenn Maxwell regain his form. Thank you.